And a very good morning to you. This is the Talk of the Town. And our guest this morning is Peter D Almeida, who's activist and from the CMU. We spoke to him on Newsline about what Aragalaya meant and posed the question, will the change happen? Here's what Peter D Almeida had to say. Will the change happen?
Yes, firstly, I was, since you said I was in all sorts of places, I thought I'll put some focus on this.
Yeah.
So I got involved in two groups. One was the artists of the people's movement, and the other was the IT professionals for the people. That's what really surprised me about the Aragalaya, because these IT professionals have never been on the streets protesting about anything, because a lot of them are fairly, well paid and good means. So I was very surprised. So that was one of the first things that struck me for us about this whole Aragalaya.
And what did you think they were there for? Why did you think that people who seem to be well off were actually on there?
So you see two things. One is they were directly affected because there was no power.
Right.
So they couldn't work even from home. So there was a direct impact on their work. But I think there was also a greater consciousness that we just can't stand by while the country falls into such a terrible state.
Right.
So because that's why they came out and demonstrated, and even in their slogans, they talked about whose country? Our country. There was that kind of, we just cannot stand idly by while the country falls, and we need to be there to, be a part of the movement.
Will the change happen? Whatever the change was, will the change happen?
I think we are seeing the change in the sense that, well, in terms of the outcome, firstly, the people came onto the streets for us because, you see, the Constitution says the sovereignty of the states lies with its people. And the people exercise the sovereignty through the institutions of the executive presidency, the legislature, and the judiciary. Interestingly, it is while these three organs of state were functioning that the country fell into bankruptcy.
Right.
It's not like they were not able to meet. So the people then realized our sovereignty must be expressed by ourselves directly on the streets.
What in your mind, Peter, was the turning point for the people of Sri Lanka to come to the realization that this simply wasn't on? And what made them, what was the catalyst for them to come out on the streets in the numbers they did? Bearing in mind that for weeks before this, we had protests from farmers in all sorts of places.
That's right.
Newsfirst reported continuously.
That's right. That's right. The farmers felt the brunt of it. Because, you saw the produce that they could make without, so we saw that. But, there was a complete breakdown, for us. They just couldn't get on with their lives because there's no power at home, there's no transport, there's no, kerosene. So for the really poor people, you've seen the queue, so they just had to line up.
But the people in Colombo, they're usually insulated from, if you like, the real world.
Yes, usually they are, but this came biting their backs, right?
Because there was no power.
There was no power, there was no fuel,
Yeah.
and they used to going around in their cars, so the buses were not there, but the urban poor who depend on kerosene, not gas. But you saw the gas queues and the kerosene queues, so they just couldn't cook a meal. It was that bad. Children not able to go to school, no income. Don't forget, they were all daily wage earners.
So 62% of Sri Lanka's working population is on what we call a daily wage.
That's right.
62%.
That's right. So no safety net for them. So they just couldn't function. That's why you saw them as well. So it was a very eclectic crowd. There was the urban middle class, even the urban upper middle class, and there was the urban poor. And then we had sections of other people who would then come by, but not the rural peasants, of course, because they couldn't get on a train and come. But so that was the nature of the struggle.
So you say that the change is happening now. What is that change?
Okay, firstly, as a direct outcome, that they got rid of a failed president and all those who were around him, including the governor of the central bank and all the bureaucrats who said everything is tickety-boo and failed the country. So we got rid of the president. Secondly, they got rid of a family regime. There was a Rajapaksa regime entrenched in power with all of their hangers-on, so to speak, enjoying political power and privilege. So they got rid of them.
You say that we got rid of them.
Yes.
They've only got rid of them from the front seat. They're very much firmly in the back seat.
Well, one can say that, but the fact is, the fact that that particular well-entrenched regime was knocked out has impact. I mean, they may be there, but they don't rule it, the country and the state of the affairs of the state the way they did. They don't make those appointments anymore. I'm sure, and that's where in a sense, when the President Ranil came to power, his priority was not to rebuild the country. His priority was to protect those who failed the country. Now, in a company, for